The explosion threw Taiho against the wall. His ears rang. His vision blurred. Dust and smoke filled the air, and he could taste blood in his mouth. He lay there for a long moment, trying to remember where he was and what had happened. Then the memories came back. The ambush, the screaming, the sound of plasma fire cutting through his friends like they were made of paper. Taiho pushed himself up slowly. His medical bag was still strapped to his chest. That was good. He was a medic, and a medic without supplies was useless. He looked around the destroyed building where he had been treating a wounded soldier just minutes ago. The soldier was dead now. Half the wall had fallen on him. There was nothing Taiho could have done. He crawled to the broken window and looked outside. The valley of Eroth 4 stretched before him, gray and lifeless. Bodies covered the ground, human bodies, Villani bodies. The battle was over, and everyone had lost. Taiho had been part of the 47th Medical Unit, attached to a combat platoon. They were supposed to hold this position for 2 days until reinforcements arrived. The Villani had other plans. They came in the night with 3 times the numbers anyone expected. The fight lasted 4 hours. Taiho spent most of it hiding behind collapsed walls, trying to save soldiers who were already dying. Now he was alone. He checked his communication device. Dead. He checked his emergency beacon. Broken. He had water for maybe 2 days, food for 3. The nearest human base was 60 kilometers away, across terrain filled with Villani patrols. He was going to die here. He knew this with a strange calmness. 28 years old, and this gray valley would be his grave. But he was still a medic, and medics did not stop working until their hearts stopped beating. His instructor had told him that on the first day of training, 6 years ago. Taiho had never forgotten. He climbed out of the ruined building and began walking through the battlefield. Maybe someone was still alive. Maybe he could help. It was a small hope, but small hopes were better than no hope at all. The Villani bodies were strange to look at, tall and thin, with silver skin that reflected the dim sunlight. Their faces were almost human, but their eyes were too large and their mouths too small. Glowing lines ran across their skin, like circuits of blue light. In death, those lines were dark. Humans called them the Villani. They called themselves something that human mouths could not pronounce. The war had started 5 years ago over a planet neither species truly needed. Now it had spread across 12 star systems, and millions had died on both sides. Taiho did not hate the Villani. He was too tired to hate anyone. He just wanted to go home, eat his mother's cooking, and sleep in a bed that did not shake from distant explosions. He walked for an hour checking bodies, all dead, human and Villani alike, their war finished, their hatred meaningless now. Then he heard it, a small sound, a rasping, wet breath, the sound of someone trying very hard not to die. Taiho followed the sound to a pile of broken concrete. A Villani soldier lay there, half buried under the rubble. Her armor was cracked open at the chest, and silver blood was pooling beneath her. Her eyes were closed, and her breathing was shallow. A female. Taiho could tell by the pattern of glowing lines on her face, though those lines were flickering now, struggling to stay lit. He stood over her for a long moment. His training screamed at him to walk away. This was the enemy. This species had killed his friends, destroyed human colonies, shown no mercy to captured soldiers in the early years of the war. But she was dying, and Taiho was a medic. He knelt beside her. Her eyes opened suddenly. They were gold, bright and fierce even now. She tried to move, tried to raise a weapon, but her arm was trapped under the rubble. "Stop," Taiho said, holding up his hands. "I am not here to hurt you." She did not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. She stopped struggling and watched him with those golden eyes, waiting to see what he would do. Taiho opened his medical bag. Human medicine would not work perfectly on Villani bodies, but the basic principles were the same. Stop the bleeding, clean the wound, keep the patient stable until proper help arrived. He worked slowly and carefully. The Villani woman watched every movement. When he touched her wound, she made a sound of pain but did not try to stop him. When he injected her with a general antibiotic, she flinched but stayed still. An hour passed. The bleeding stopped. Her breathing became stronger. The glowing lines on her skin grew brighter. She spoke to him in her language. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. She was asking him a question, the same question she would ask him many times in the months to come. Why? Taiho pointed to the red cross on his medical bag. The symbol meant nothing to her. He pointed to his chest, to his heart. It is what I do, he said simply. She stared at him for a long time. Then she closed her eyes and slept. Taiho sat beside her as the sun moved across the gray sky. He was still trapped on this dead battlefield. He was still probably going to die. But right now, in this moment, he had done something that mattered. He had saved a life. It did not matter that she was Villani. It did not matter that her people had killed his friends. In that moment, she was just a person who needed help, and he was the only one who could provide it. Night came. The temperature dropped. Taiho covered the Villani woman with his own jacket and sat shivering beside her. He thought about his family back on Earth. His mother, who still sent him messages every week even though they took months to arrive. His younger brother, who was studying to become an engineer. His father, who had died 3 years ago and never got to see the end of this war. He thought about all the soldiers who had died today. Good people, scared people, people who wanted to go home just as much as he did. And he thought about the alien woman sleeping beside him. She had tried to kill him when she first woke up. Now she was trusting him with her life. War was strange. People were strange. The universe was strange. Taiho did not sleep that night. He sat and watched the stars and wondered what tomorrow would bring. He did not know it yet, but he had just changed the course of his entire life. This one decision, this one act of mercy, would create a bond that crossed species and survived war. But that was still in the future. For now, he was just a tired medic sitting in the dark, keeping watch over an enemy he had chosen to save. The Villani woman woke at dawn. Her golden eyes found Taiho immediately, and for a moment, neither of them moved. She was weak but alive. He was exhausted but unharmed. They stared at each other across the gap between their species. She spoke first. Her voice was rough and tired, but there was strength in it. She asked him something in her language, and though Taiho did not understand the words, he recognized the question. It was the same one from last night. Why did you save me? Taiho touched his medical bag again. He mimed the act of healing, of bandaging a wound. She watched him with those sharp golden eyes. And he could see her thinking, trying to understand. She said something else, a single word that sounded like Nira. She touched her chest when she said it. Nira, Taiho repeated. Is that your name? She nodded slowly. She had understood him, at least a little. She pointed at him and raised an eyebrow. Taiho, he said, touching his own chest. Taiho. She said his name carefully, breaking it into 2 parts. Her pronunciation was strange, but it was close enough. She nodded once, as if accepting this information. They had names now. They were no longer just human and Villani. They were Taiho and Nira, 2 people stranded in a dead valley. The first day was difficult. Nira tried to stand and almost collapsed. Her wound was stable, but she had lost too much blood. She needed rest, water, and food. Taiho had some supplies, but not enough for both of them. He shared anyway. He gave her half his water and half his food. She looked at him strangely when he did this, as if she could not understand why he would weaken himself to help her. By afternoon, she was strong enough to sit up. She examined her wound and seemed impressed by his work. She said something that might have been a compliment, though he could not be sure. That night, Taiho heard ships in the distance, human ships, searching for survivors. He stood up quickly, ready to signal them, but Nira grabbed his arm. She shook her head and pointed to the sky. Not human. Villani. Taiho's heart sank. The ships passed overhead without seeing them, but he understood the message. This area was being patrolled by the enemy. Any rescue would be dangerous. On the second day, Nira was able to walk. She moved slowly, leaning on broken walls for support, but she was healing faster than Taiho expected. The Villani were a strong species. She led him to a small cave at the edge of the valley. It was hidden behind fallen rocks, invisible from the air. Inside, there was a Villani supply cache. Food, water, medical supplies. She opened it and gestured for him to take what he needed. Taiho stared at her. She was helping him now. The enemy she should hate was being fed and cared for by the same hands. Why? He asked, using the same tone she had used. She touched her chest, where the wound was. Then she touched his medical bag. She did not need words. The meaning was clear. You saved me. Now I save you. On the third day, everything changed. A Villani patrol found them. 3 soldiers in heavy armor, weapons raised, ready to kill. Tiho closed his eyes and waited for death. But Nira stepped in front of him. She spoke rapidly in her language. The soldiers listened, their expressions hidden behind their helmets. One of them argued with her, his voice angry and sharp. Nira argued back, louder and fiercer. She pointed at Taiho, at her wound, at some symbol on her armor that he did not recognize. The argument lasted several minutes. Finally, the lead soldier lowered his weapon. He said something to Nira that sounded like a question. She nodded firmly. The soldier looked at Taiho. Then he reached into a pouch and pulled out a small device. He pressed it against Taiho's neck. There was a brief sting, and then a strange smell filled his nose. Nira spoke to him slowly, using simple gestures. She touched the spot where the device had marked him, then drew a circle around herself. She was claiming him, marking him as her property. In Villani culture, this meant something important. Property could not be killed without the owner's permission. It was a loophole, a way to keep him alive. Taiho wanted to feel insulted. He was not property. He was a human being, a soldier of Earth. But he was also alive, and that was more important than pride. The soldiers called for transport. A ship arrived within the hour. Taiho was bound at the wrists, but gently, without violence. He was placed in a holding cell on the ship, alone but unharmed. Before the door closed, Nira appeared. She looked at him through the bars, her golden eyes unreadable. Taiho, she said quietly. Then a word in her language that he did not understand. She touched her heart and bowed her head slightly. The door closed. The ship lifted off. Through the small window, Taiho watched the valley shrink below him. He watched until it disappeared into the gray landscape of Aeroth 4. He was a prisoner now. His future was uncertain. But he was alive because of her. The journey to the Villani detention facility took several days. Taiho was kept in his cell the entire time. Guards brought him food and water, but did not speak to him. He spent the hours staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. He thought about Nira, about the way she had stepped in front of those weapons without hesitation, about the strange mark on his neck that declared him her property, about the words she had spoken before the door closed. What did it mean? Why had she worked so hard to save him? He would not understand for many months. He would not learn the answer until she finally explained it to him in a language he could understand. But even then, in that lonely cell, he felt something had changed. A connection had formed between them, thin and fragile but real. They were enemies by birth, by politics, by war. But something stronger than war had passed between them in that valley. He had saved her life. She had saved his. In the cruel mathematics of war, they were even now. But in the deeper mathematics of the soul, something far more complicated had begun. The ship arrived at the detention facility. Taiho was led through cold hallways to a small cell. The door locked behind him. He sat on the hard bed and looked at his hands. He was alone. He was far from home. He might never see Earth again. But he was alive. And somewhere in this facility, or perhaps far away on a battlefield, the Villani woman named Nira was alive too. Because of him. In war, small acts of mercy often disappear without a trace. They are forgotten, buried under the weight of blood and fire. But sometimes, rarely, they survive. They grow. They become something that changes everything. Taiho did not know it yet, but his small act of mercy in that gray valley had planted a seed. And seeds, given enough time, become trees that cannot be cut down. He lay back on his bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight he would rest. Outside his window, alien stars burned in an unfamiliar sky. But stars were stars everywhere in the universe. And somewhere under those same stars, a woman with golden eyes was thinking about him too. The detention facility was cold. Not cruel, but cold. The Villani did not torture their prisoners. They followed strict rules about how captives should be treated. But those rules did not include comfort or warmth. Taiho spent his first month learning the routine. Wake at dawn, eat a small meal of bland paste that tasted like nothing. Exercise in a small yard with other human prisoners. Eat again, sleep, repeat. There were 12 other humans in the facility. Soldiers, pilots, one engineer. They shared stories and rumors. Most believed they would be executed eventually. The Vellani were winning the war, they said. They did not need prisoners. Taiho did not share their despair. He did not know why, but he felt certain he would survive. Maybe it was the mark on his neck. Maybe it was something else. 3 weeks after his arrival, Nira came to see him. She appeared at his cell without warning. A guard opened the door and stepped aside. She walked in, tall and graceful in her silver armor, her golden eyes finding his immediately. Taiho stood up quickly. He did not know what to say. Taiho, she said. Then more words in her language, none of which he understood. She saw his confusion and sighed. She sat down on the small chair in the corner of his cell and gestured for him to sit on the bed. He did. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then she began speaking slowly, using simple words and gestures. She pointed at herself, at him, at the walls around them. She was trying to explain something, but the gap between their languages was too wide. Finally, she gave up. She stood, bowed her head slightly, and left. The guard locked the door behind her. Taiho sat in the dark, wondering what she had wanted to say. She came back 2 weeks later. This time she brought food. Real food, not the bland paste they fed prisoners. Strange fruits and cooked meat that tasted better than anything he had eaten in months. She watched him eat with an expression he could not read. When he finished, she tried again to speak with him. Again, they failed to understand each other. But something passed between them anyway. Something in the way she looked at him. Something in the way she waited patiently while he struggled to guess her meaning. She came every few weeks after that. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes she brought warm clothes or blankets. She never explained why, and he could not ask. The other prisoners noticed. They asked him questions he could not answer. Why was a Vellani warrior visiting a human medic? What did she want? Was he giving her information? Taiho had no answers. He only knew that when she came, he felt less alone. 6 months into his captivity, everything changed. Nira arrived with a small device in her hand. She pressed a button, and a soft voice spoke in perfect English. "This is a translator. I had it made for you. Now we can talk." Taiho stared at the device. Then he looked at her. "You did this? For me?" She nodded. "I have many questions, and I think you have questions too." He laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in months. "Yes, many questions." She sat down and they talked for hours. He learned that the mark on his neck made him her responsibility under Vellani law. She had claimed him not as property in the human sense, but as someone bound to her by a sacred obligation. If he died, she would be shamed. If he suffered, she would bear that shame too. "It is called Velthara," she explained, "a life debt. You saved my life, so now your life is connected to mine. I must protect you." "But I am your enemy," Taiho said. "We are at war." "War is temporary," Nira replied. "Velthara is forever." He tried to understand. In human culture, saving someone's life was a good deed, but it did not create permanent bonds. People said thank you and moved on. "I did not save you to own you," he said carefully. "I saved you because you were dying. It was my duty as a healer." Nira tilted her head, studying him. "You would save anyone? Even an enemy?" "Yes." "Even someone who tried to kill you?" "Yes." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something in her own language, too fast for the translator to catch. She stood up abruptly. "I must go. I will return." She left. She did not come back for 2 months. Taiho spent those months thinking about their conversation. He had seen something in her eyes when he answered her questions. Confusion, maybe, or doubt. The Vellani believed in honor, but their honor had rules and obligations. His mercy had no rules. It was given freely without expectation of return. He wondered if that frightened her. When she finally returned, she was different, calmer, more certain. "I have been thinking," she said, "about what you told me, about human healers who save enemies. And what did you decide? She looked at him with those golden eyes. I decided that your people are very strange, but also very interesting. Taiho smiled. We think the same about you. She almost smiled back. Almost. The Villani did not smile the way humans did, but he saw something soften in her face. The war is changing, she said. Your people are developing new weapons. Our leaders are worried. Will there be peace? Perhaps. If peace comes, prisoners will be exchanged. You might go home. Home. The word hit him like a physical blow. He had tried not to think about home. It was too painful. But now, hearing her say it, he felt hope rising in his chest. And what about you? He asked. What will you do if there is peace? I do not know. The Velthara would remain. You would still be my responsibility, even if you were on the other side of the galaxy? That sounds lonely. She looked away. It is what it is. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the alien sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was beautiful, even through the prison window. Nira, Taiho said finally, thank you for the translator, for the food, for everything. She stood up, preparing to leave. At the door, she paused. In my culture, we do not thank people for Velthara. It is not a kindness, it is an obligation. She turned to look at him. But I think I am beginning to understand why humans say thank you. It is not about debt. It is about connection. She left before he could respond. Taiho sat alone in his cell, watching the last light fade from the sky. He thought about connection, about the strange bond between a human medic and a Villani warrior. About how war brought people together in ways that peace never could. He did not know what the future would bring, but he knew that whatever happened, he would never forget her, and he suspected, hoped, that she would never forget him either. 5 more months passed. The war continued. The rumors grew stronger. Peace was coming, the prisoners whispered. Exchange was coming. And every few weeks, a Villani woman with golden eyes came to visit a human man in a cold cell, and they talked until the sun went down. Something was growing between them. Neither of them had a name for it yet, but it was there, quiet and patient, waiting for its moment to bloom. The news came on a cold morning in the 11th month of Taiho's captivity. A guard opened his cell door and spoke through the translator. Prepare yourself. You are leaving. Taiho did not believe it at first. He had heard rumors of prisoner exchanges, but rumors were cheap in the detention facility. Everyone had heard stories. No one had seen proof, but this was real. Within hours, he was loaded onto a transport ship with the other human prisoners. They were given back their personal items, their military identification, even the clothes they had been wearing when captured. Taiho's medical bag was returned to him. He held it in his hands like a precious treasure. The journey to the exchange point took 3 days. During that time, Taiho learned what had happened. Humanity had developed a new weapon, something called a quantum disruptor. It could pass through Villani shields like they were made of paper. The war had turned in humanity's favor almost overnight. The Villani, facing defeat, had agreed to peace talks. As a gesture of good faith, they were releasing all prisoners. Taiho thought about Nira. He had not seen her since her last visit, 3 weeks ago. She had seemed worried then, distracted. Now he understood why. The exchange happened on a neutral space station. Human prisoners on one side, Villani prisoners on the other. They walked past each other in silence, enemies who were no longer at war. Taiho looked for Nira in the Villani crowd. He did not see her. On the human side, he was processed through medical checks and identity confirmation. Doctors examined him and declared him healthy. Officers asked him questions about his captivity, about what he had seen and heard. He answered carefully, leaving out the parts about Nira. Then he was put on a ship to Earth. Home. He had dreamed about this moment for 11 months, but now that it was here, he felt strange, empty, like he had left something important behind. Earth welcomed him as a hero, the medic who survived alone behind enemy lines, the prisoner who endured 11 months in Villani captivity. His face appeared on news broadcasts. His name was spoken by people who had never met him. They promoted him to senior medic. They gave him medals he did not want. They asked him to give speeches about courage and survival. Teho did all of this because it was expected. He smiled for the cameras. He shook hands with important people. He told his story without mentioning the Villani woman who had saved his life. Inside, he felt lost. 3 months after his return, Commander Hana came to see him. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Earth Defense Corps. She had led some of the most important battles of the war. "Lieutenant Taiho," she said, "I have a job for you." The peace negotiations were beginning. After months of preliminary talks, both sides had agreed to meet face-to-face on a neutral station. Diplomats would discuss terms. Military leaders would argue about borders and reparations. And somewhere in the middle, cultural advisors would try to help each side understand the other. "You lived among them," Commander Hana said. "You understand how they think. I want you on my team." Taiho hesitated. Part of him wanted to say no. He was tired. He wanted to rest, to forget about the war and everything connected to it. But another part of him thought about golden eyes and silver skin, about Velthara and strange bonds that cross the boundaries of species. "Will the Villani delegation include their warriors?" he asked. "Yes. They always bring an honor guard." "Why?" "No reason. I accept the position." The neutral station was called Haven. It floated in empty space between human and Villani territory, a massive structure built by both sides as a symbol of hope. It was beautiful and cold, full of meeting rooms and empty hallways. Taiho arrived with the human delegation on a bright morning. He wore his new uniform with his new medals, but he felt like an imposter. He was not a hero. He was just a medic who had been lucky enough to survive. The Villani delegation arrived the next day, diplomats in flowing robes, commanders in polished armor, and behind them, an honor guard of warriors. Taiho saw her immediately. Nira stood at the back of the guard, her golden eyes scanning the room. She looked different in her formal armor, taller somehow, more distant, but it was her. He would know her anywhere. Their eyes met across the crowded hall. She did not wave or smile. Instead, she raised her hand to her chest and performed a short salute. It was a Villani gesture he had seen before, but never directed at him. According to the translator, it was a greeting between equals. The other Villani noticed. A few of them looked at her with confusion. One older warrior frowned deeply. Taiho returned the salute as best he could. He saw something flicker in Nira's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. Then the moment passed. The diplomats began talking. The negotiations began. For the next several days, Taiho had little time to think about Nira. His job was to explain human behavior to the Villani diplomats and Villani behavior to the human ones. He talked about honor codes and mercy. He explained why humans valued freedom over structure. He helped smooth over misunderstandings before they became conflicts. It was exhausting work, but it was important. And every time he looked across the room, he saw Nira watching him. They finally spoke on the 5th night. Taiho was walking through an empty corridor when she stepped out of the shadows. He stopped, his heart suddenly beating faster. "Hello, Taiho," she said. "Hello, Nira." They stood there in silence for a moment. So much had happened since their last meeting. So much had changed. "You look different," she said finally. "Stronger, more confident." "You look the same," she almost smiled. "That is because I am Villani. We do not change quickly." They walked together through the quiet halls. She told him about her life since the peace talks began. She had been reassigned from combat duty to the honor guard. It was a respected position, but she missed the battlefield. "The Velthara still binds us," she said, "even now, even after all this time." "Does that bother you?" She considered the question. "It did at first. I did not understand why I felt responsible for a human. But now," she paused, "now I think I understand. You taught me something in that valley, something I did not know I needed to learn." "What did I teach you?" She stopped walking and turned to face him. In the dim light of the corridor, her eyes glowed like small suns. "You taught me that honor does not require reason, that mercy can be given freely, without expecting anything in return." She touched her chest. "My people believe in obligation, in debt, in rules. But you showed me something different, something human." Taiho did not know what to say. He had never thought of himself as a teacher. He was just a medic who had done his job. "I am glad I saved you," he said finally. "Whatever else has happened, I do not regret that." She nodded slowly. "Neither do I." They stood there in the quiet corridor, two people who should have been enemies connected by something stronger than war. Somewhere in the station, diplomats were arguing about borders and reparations. But here, in this small moment, something more important was happening. A bridge was being built, not between species or governments, but between two hearts that had found each other in the darkest place imaginable. And bridges once built are very hard to destroy. The peace negotiations dragged on for weeks. Every day brought new arguments, new tensions, new moments when everything seemed ready to collapse. Both sides had grievances. Both sides had dead to mourn. Finding common ground was like trying to build a house on quicksand. Taiho worked harder than he ever had in his life. He translated not just words but meanings. He explained why humans became angry when Villani dismissed their dead as acceptable losses. He explained why Villani became offended when humans demanded apologies. It was delicate work. A single misunderstanding could destroy weeks of progress. Through it all, Nira was there. She stood with the honor guard during official meetings, silent and watchful. But in the quiet moments between sessions, she found ways to be near him. They talked whenever they could, in empty corridors, in the small garden at the center of the station. Sometimes they talked about the negotiations. Sometimes they talked about their homes, their families, their dreams. She told him about her world, the vast silver forest where she had trained as a warrior, the cities that floated above pink clouds, the songs her mother used to sing when she was young. He told her about Earth, the blue oceans he used to swim in as a child, the mountains where his family went hiking every summer, the small apartment where his mother still lived, still waiting for him to come home. "Your world sounds beautiful," she said one evening. "So does yours." She looked out the window at the stars. "Perhaps one day, when this is over, we can see each other's worlds." "I would like that." But peace was not certain yet, and danger was closer than either of them knew. One night, 2 weeks into the negotiations, Nira came to find him in his quarters. Her face was tense, her movements quick and nervous. "We need to talk," she said, "in private." She led him to a small storage room where they would not be overheard. When the door closed behind them, she spoke in a low, urgent voice. "There is a faction among my people, traditionalists. They believe that peace with humanity is a mistake. They think your species is too chaotic, too unpredictable, to ever be trusted." Taiho nodded slowly. He had heard rumors about this. "What are they planning?" "An assassination. One of your diplomats. They hope that if negotiations fail, the war will continue." His blood went cold. "When?" "Soon. Within the next few days. I do not know the exact time or target, but I know it is coming." "Why are you telling me this?" She met his eyes. "Because the Velthara binds us. Because you showed me what mercy means. Because—" She hesitated. "Because I cannot stand by and watch innocent people die for a war that should already be over." Taiho took her hands in his. They were cool and smooth, like polished metal. "Thank you. I will tell Commander Hana immediately. If they discover I warned you, I will be executed for treason. I will not tell them it came from you." She shook her head. "They will know anyway. There are not many Villani who would help humans. The list of suspects will be very short. Then come with me. Stay on the human side. We can protect you." "Not yet. If I leave now, it will confirm their suspicions. The assassination may happen sooner." She squeezed his hands. "Let me stay a little longer. Let me try to find out more details. Then when it is over, I will come to you." Taiho did not want to let her go. He did not want her to walk back into danger for his sake. But he saw the determination in her eyes and he knew he could not stop her. "Be careful," he said. "I am Villani. We are always careful." She slipped out of the room without another word. Taiho stood alone in the darkness, his heart pounding. He went straight to Commander Hana. She listened to his warning without interruption. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You trust your source?" she asked. "With my life." She nodded. "Then we prepare." Security was doubled on all human diplomats. Guards were placed at every entrance. Scanners were installed to detect hidden weapons. Everything was done quietly, without alerting the Villani delegation. 3 days passed. Nothing happened. Some of the security team began to relax. Maybe the threat was exaggerated. Maybe the traditionalists had changed their minds. On the fourth day, the attack came. It happened during a formal dinner. Both delegations were gathered in the main hall, sharing a meal as a symbol of growing trust. Taiho was seated near the back, watching the room. He saw the assassin move before anyone else. A Villani server, carrying a tray of food, suddenly dropped the tray and pulled a weapon from beneath his robes. He aimed at the lead human diplomat. Taiho shouted a warning. Guards rushed forward, but they were too slow. The assassin was going to fire. Then Nira was there. She moved faster than Taiho had ever seen anyone move. She threw herself at the assassin, knocking his arm aside just as he pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, burning a hole in the wall. They struggled on the ground. The assassin was strong, but Nira was stronger. She twisted the weapon from his hand and slammed him into the floor. More guards arrived and pinned him down. The room exploded into chaos. Diplomats shouted. Guards formed protective barriers. Both sides accused the other of treachery. In the middle of it all, Nira stood alone. Every Villani in the room was staring at her. She had attacked one of her own people to protect a human. In their eyes, she was a traitor. She had broken the most sacred laws of her kind. An older warrior stepped forward. Taiho recognized him as one of the senior commanders. His face was twisted with rage. You dishonor your entire bloodline, he said in Villani. The translator in Taiho's ear converted his words to English. You side with animals against your own people. Nira stood tall. I side with peace against murder. If that makes me a traitor, then I accept that name. The commander raised his hand as if to strike her, but Nira did not flinch. She met his eyes without fear. Commander Hana stepped forward. This woman has done us a great service. She saved the life of one of our diplomats. Under the terms of our preliminary agreement, I formally request asylum for her. The Villani commander stared at her, then at Nira, then back at her. Take her, he said finally. She is no longer Villani. She is nothing. Nira walked across the room to the human side. Every step was steady. She did not look back. When she reached Taiho, she stopped. Her face was calm, but he could see the pain in her eyes. She had just lost everything. Her home, her people, her identity. It is done, she said quietly. Taiho took her hand. You are safe now. You are with us. She looked down at their joined hands, human and Villani, two species that had tried to destroy each other for 5 years. I do not know what I am anymore, she whispered. You are my friend, Taiho said. That is enough for now. Around them, the chaos continued. Guards questioned the assassin. Diplomats argued about what this meant for the peace talks. The future was uncertain, but in that small moment, none of it mattered. What mattered was two people standing together, refusing to let war define who they were. The peace treaty was signed 1 week later. It was imperfect, like all treaties, but it was a beginning. And Nira, the warrior who had betrayed her people for the sake of peace, stood in the back of the room and watched history being made. She had lost her world, but maybe, just maybe, she had found something better. Life after the peace treaty was strange for everyone. For Nira, it was harder than most. She was given quarters on the same station where Taiho was assigned. It was a small room with white walls and a window that looked out at the stars. She had nothing to put in it. Everything she owned had been left behind when she crossed to the human side. Taiho visited her every day. He brought her human food and taught her human customs. He showed her movies and music and books. She absorbed it all with quiet curiosity, but something was missing from her eyes. The fire that had once burned there was fading. She was lost, a warrior without a war, a Villani without a people. She did not know who she was anymore. Taiho watched her struggle and felt helpless. He wanted to help, but he did not know how. Some wounds could not be healed with medicine or kindness. 3 months passed. Nira grew thinner. She slept less. She spent long hours staring out the window at nothing. One evening, she collapsed. Taiho was walking past the training room when he heard the sound, a heavy thud followed by silence. He ran inside and found her on the floor, unconscious, her silver skin pale and dull. He called for medical help and rode with her to the station's hospital. The doctors examined her with human equipment adapted for Volani biology. Their faces grew more serious as the scans progressed. There is internal damage, the lead doctor said. An old wound that never healed properly. It has been getting worse for years. Taiho's blood went cold. He knew which wound they were talking about. The injury from the valley, from the day they first met. The injury he had treated with human medicine, in desperate hope. Can you fix it? We can try. We need to operate immediately. The surgery took 6 hours. Taiho waited outside the entire time, pacing back and forth, unable to sit still. He thought about all the conversations they had shared, all the quiet moments, all the things he had never said. Finally, the doctor emerged. Her face was tired but relieved. She will live. The damage was severe, but we repaired it. She is strong. She will recover. Taiho let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Can I see her? She is still unconscious, but yes, you can sit with her. He entered the recovery room and sat beside her bed. She looked smaller somehow, lying there under the white blankets. Her armor had been removed for the surgery. It sat in a pile on a nearby table, damaged and dirty. He looked at the armor for a long moment. It was the same armor she had been wearing when they first met. She had never replaced it, even after becoming an exile. He had always wondered why. Without really thinking about it, he stood and walked to the table. He picked up the chest piece, the part that covered her heart. It was heavy in his hands, made of some metal he could not identify. He turned it over and stopped breathing. On the inside of the armor, directly over where her heart would be, something was carved into the metal. Angular symbols in the Volani script, scratched deep into the surface as if with a blade. He recognized one word immediately, his own name, Taiho. But there were more words beneath it, a longer message in symbols he could not read. His hands trembled as he pulled out his translator device and held it up to the carving. The device beeped softly. Then a mechanical voice spoke the translation. Taiho of Earth, he showed me that honor is not obligation. It is choice. I choose him. Taiho read the words again and again. He felt his throat tighten. His eyes burned with tears he could not control. She had carried his name over her heart all this time, through battles and peace talks and exile, through everything. He did not hear her wake up. He did not notice until she spoke. You found it. He turned. She was watching him from the bed, her golden eyes tired but alert. Nira. He did not know what to say. The words caught in his chest. I carved it the night before they sent you home, she said quietly. I thought I would never see you again. I wanted to carry something of you with me, something that would remind me of what you taught me. What I taught you, that mercy is not weakness, that healing can be as sacred as war, that honor means nothing if it is forced upon you. She paused. Among my people, we carve the names of those who shape us. Parents, teachers, great enemies. To carve a name over your heart means that person has touched your soul in ways that can never be erased. Taiho walked slowly back to her bed. He still held the armor in his hands. His tears were falling now, dropping onto the metal, onto the carved letters of his own name. Why did you never tell me? He whispered. Because I did not know how. Because I was afraid. Because... She looked away. Because humans do not have Velthara. You do not understand bonds that last forever. I did not want to burden you with feelings you could not return. Taiho set the armor down gently. He took her hand in his, just as he had done on the night she warned him about the assassination. I may not have Velthara, he said, but I have something else. Humans call it love. She looked at him. Love? It means that you matter to me, more than I can explain, more than I ever expected. It means that when you collapsed today, I was more afraid than I have ever been in my life. It means that I cannot imagine my future without you in it. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached up with her free hand and touched his face. Her fingers traced the lines of his jaw, his cheek, his forehead. She was memorizing him, he realized, learning him by touch. I do not fully understand human love, she said finally, but I think I think I feel something similar. When I am with you, the emptiness inside me becomes smaller. When I hear your voice, I feel like I am home, even though I have no home anymore. Taiho leaned forward and rested his forehead against hers. It was a human gesture of closeness. She accepted it without pulling away. Then stay with me, he said. Not because of Velthara or obligation or debt. Stay because you want to. Stay because we choose each other. Is that how humans do it? They choose? Yes. She closed her eyes. Then I choose you, Taiho of Earth, now and for whatever time we have. He stayed with her through the night, holding her hand as she drifted in and out of sleep. Outside the window, the stars turned slowly, indifferent to the small miracle happening in this quiet room. Two people from different worlds, two hearts that had found each other in the middle of a war, two souls that had chosen connection over conflict. The armor sat on the table, its secret finally revealed. But the real truth was not in the carving. The real truth was in the space between them, in the silence that needed no words. Some stories end with grand battles or dramatic rescues. This one ended with two people sitting together in a hospital room, watching the stars and imagining the future. It was a quiet ending. But quiet endings are often the truest ones. Nira recovered slowly. Her body had been pushed to its limits for too long, and healing took time. But she was strong, and she was determined, and every day she grew a little better. Taiho was with her through all of it. He helped her walk when she was too weak to stand alone. He brought her food and water and books to read. He sat with her during the long nights when she could not sleep. They talked about everything, their childhoods, their fears, their hopes for the future. She told him stories about Vellani legends and heroes. He told her stories about Earth's history and cultures. They learned each other in ways that went deeper than words. One afternoon, a few weeks after her surgery, Nira asked to see her armor again. Taiho brought it to her. She held the chest piece in her hands, running her fingers over the carving on the inside. Her name for him, her declaration. I want to tell you something, she said, about the night I carved this. He sat beside her and waited. It was the hardest night of my life, she continued, harder than any battle. I had been given orders to forget about you. My commander told me that the Velthara was a mistake, that I should let you die in the exchange and free myself from the burden. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. I considered it. For one dark moment, I considered letting them kill you. It would have been easier. I could have gone back to my old life. I could have pretended that nothing had changed. But you didn't. No, because something had changed. You had changed me, Taiho. Your kindness in that valley broke something inside me. Or maybe it fixed something. I am still not sure which. She looked up at him. I could not let you die because letting you die would mean that everything you taught me was wrong. And I knew. I knew in my soul that it was not wrong. She set the armor aside. So I carved your name over my heart. I made a promise to myself that I would carry you with me, no matter what happened. That I would honor what you gave me, even if the universe tried to tear us apart. Taiho listened in silence. His throat was tight. His eyes burned. You never told me this, he said finally. I never knew how. Vellani do not speak of such things easily. We show our feelings through actions, not words. She took his hand. But I am learning, slowly. I am learning that sometimes words are necessary. Sometimes the people we love need to hear the truth. Not just see it. Love. She had used the word, the human word that he had taught her. I love you too, he said. His voice was rough, cracked with emotion. I have loved you since the detention facility. Maybe since the valley. I do not know when it started. I only know that it is real and it is not going away. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his, the Vellani gesture of closeness that she had taught him weeks ago. Then we are bonded, she said, not by Velthara, not by obligation, by choice, by love. They stayed like that for a long time, forehead to forehead, breathing the same air. Outside the window, ships passed back and forth, carrying people to new destinations. The galaxy was moving on from war. New possibilities were opening up. But in that quiet room, none of it mattered. What mattered was this moment, this connection, this choice that two people had made to stand together despite everything that should have kept them apart. 3 years later, Taiho and Nira stood on the bridge of the horizon, humanity's first joint species exploration vessel. It was a beautiful ship designed by both human and Vellani engineers, a symbol of what two species could accomplish together. Nira wore new armor now. It was human-made, fitted perfectly to her Vellani body. Lighter than her old armor, more flexible, but just as strong, and beneath it, over her heart, she still wore her old chest piece, the one with the carving. She would never remove it. Some things were too precious to let go. Taiho stood beside her, watching the stars streak past as the ship entered hyperspace. He was no longer just a medic. He was a cultural liaison, a bridge between two peoples, a living example of what peace could achieve. But in his heart, he was still the same person he had always been. A man who believed that mercy mattered. A man who had chosen to save an enemy and found something far more valuable than victory. "Do you ever think about the valley?" Nira asked. "Sometimes." "What do you think about?" He considered the question. "I think about how scared I was, how alone. I think about how close I came to walking away from you. Why did you not walk away?" He turned to look at her. After all these years, she was still the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Her silver skin, her golden eyes, the gentle glow of the lines on her face. "Because you were dying," he said simply, "and I could help. That is all it was. That is all it ever needed to be." She smiled. It had taken her years to learn how to smile in the human way, but she had practiced until it was perfect. "You humans and your simple reasons," she said. "You save lives because they need saving. You love because you choose to love. You build futures because you refuse to accept defeat. Is that a bad thing?" "No." She took his hand. "It is the best thing. It is why my people feared you during the war, and it is why I love you now." The horizon continued its journey into the unknown. There would be new worlds to discover, new species to meet, new challenges to face, but whatever came, they would face it together. On Nira's armor, beneath the new plating, the old carving remained. Taiho's name carved over her heart, along with the words that explained everything. "He showed me that honor is not obligation, it is choice." And beside those words carved in small letters that Nira had added herself just before they launched, a new word in human script: home. Because that is what they were to each other now. Not human and Vellani, not former enemies, not survivors of a war that should have killed them both. Home. The stars stretched on forever, cold and distant. But here on this ship, traveling toward the unknown, two hearts beat as one. Two souls that had chosen each other against all odds. Two people who had proven that love was stronger than war, that mercy was stronger than hate, that choice was stronger than destiny. Somewhere in the galaxy, the valley on Arath 4 still existed, the place where everything began. Maybe someday they would return there. Maybe they would stand together on that gray soil and remember the day they met. But that was in the future. Right now they had the stars. They had each other. And they had something that no war could ever destroy. They had hope. And hope in the end is the most human thing of all. The end.